Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. In my previous video, I discussed the Canberra Times 1988 forecast that the Maldives would be underwater no later than the year 2018. They also predicted that the Maldives would run out of drinking water by the year 1992. And the Canberra Times also said that the only way to prevent 1 to 4 meters of sea level rise by the year 2030 was to adopt a one-world government, which coincidentally happens to be the same solution which the Canberra Times proposes for all of their other imaginary problems. And this is what the Maldives look like today. They don't appear to be underwater. But the Canberra Times has dug in and they say they have science on their side. Here's an article from the Canberra Times this month. Should super funds put their money in the Maldives? Why not? Asks Liberal backbencher Craig Kelly. The question for Queensland Liberal MP and climate skeptic Craig Kelly on Monday was whether superannuation funds are allowed to buck the climate science and invest in low-lying resorts in the Maldives or coal mines that export to China and India. So the Canberra Times says that science is on their side and Australia should not invest in the Maldives or in coal mines that export to China and India. As a scientist, I would not agree with the Canberra Times forecast that the Maldives will be underwater by the year 2018. I can see pretty clearly that that did not happen. The Saudi government is investing $10 billion in the Maldives because they understand that it's an excellent investment. It was reported in May that the Maldives plan to open up 5 new airports this year. Property values in the Maldives have skyrocketed. This beautiful new resort in the Maldives just opened up last week. President Obama spent 8 years warning the world about sea level rise. And he just purchased a $15 million home on the beach at Martha's Vineyard. It's pretty obvious that he's not actually concerned about sea level rise. Now let's look at Craig Kelly's plan to sell coal to India and China. Well, according to Carbon Brief, India and China are building lots of new coal-fired power plants. So selling them coal would be an excellent investment for Australia, a great way to make money. India and China are going to burn the coal, whether they purchase it from Australia or somebody else. Oddly enough, India and China are not concerned about the feelings of 16-year-old Swedish girls who don't attend school. Now let's look at some of the spectacular dishonesty in the Canberra Times article. They say right here that Swedish academic Niels Axel Morner rejects mainstream data on sea level change, which is the exact opposite of reality. Niels Axel Morner rejects sea level alarmism precisely because he actually looks at the data. In his paper, he points out things like sea level is not rising at all in the Maldives, which is something the Canberra Times didn't understand 30 years ago, and they still don't understand it now. Then the Canberra Times goes on, in excess of 95% of scientists globally have coalesced around the factors that are leading to sea level rise. This 95% number is a completely fake number which was thought up by the press and politicians. It has no basis in reality. There's never been any sort of survey of actual scientists which showed anything like the numbers which politicians and the press throw around. And then the Canberra Times tries to put words in Craig Kelly's mouth. Yes, but what if a company wanted to go with the 5% of scientists and invest precisely because no one else was doing so? Mr. Kelly persisted. The Canberra Times is implying that Mr. Kelly agrees with their fake 95% number. He didn't say anything of the sort, and it's incredibly dishonest of the Canberra Times to claim that he did. The Canberra Times is committing journalistic fraud. Here's what the actual sea level data shows. The closest tide gauge to Canberra is the one at Sydney. It also has one of the longest and most reliable records, and it shows very little sea level rise over the last 125 years. Here's a photograph of the tide gauge at Sydney's Fort Denison. I took this picture 3 years ago this week. And this is what Fort Denison looked like around the year 1880. If the high water mark has changed, it's not perceptible. 1880, 2016. 1880, 2016. And here's some historical pictures from Bondi Beach in Sydney. The top picture is climate pagans protesting sea level rise this year. The second picture is people enjoying the beach 30 years ago. The third picture is people enjoying the beach in 1909. And the bottom picture is what it looked like around 130 years ago. There's no visible indication that sea level is rising at Bondi Beach. The Canberra Times rejects data, they reject evidence, and they reject actual science. Instead, they cling to their same 30-year-old nonsense forecasts. It's important for people to understand just how dishonest many journalists have become. Toto is doing everything he can to expose these frauds. Visit him on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science and propaganda for a long time.